Mrs. Jones, a cherished resident of Maplewood Lane for over 50 years, observed from her porch as a moving truck pulled up next door. The Harris family, busy with unloading boxes, had just arrived. Known for her warmth and kindness, Mrs. Jones decided to extend a friendly welcome to her new neighbors. She hoped to leave a positive impression on Mr. and Mrs. Harris and their teenage sons, Jake and Tommy. Despite their initial aloofness, the Harris family included Keith and Carla Harris and their teenage sons, Jake and Tommy. While Mr. and Mrs. Harris were friendly, Jake and Tommy showed little interest in their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jones. Despite Mrs. Jones's warm greetings, the boys stayed distant and unresponsive. She kept to her daily routine, hoping they would eventually appreciate her kindness. A former elementary school teacher who loved children, Mrs. Jones was disheartened by the boys' indifferent behavior. Before we continue, please subscribe, hit the like button, and click the notification bell for more amazing stories to come. Over time, Mrs. Jones kept busy with her gardening and enjoyed conversations with other neighbors, always hopeful that the Harris boys would eventually warm to her. Yet Jake and Tommy continued to keep their distance, showing little enthusiasm for the friendly elderly lady next door. Despite this, Mrs. Jones stayed patient, trusting that her unwavering kindness and time might eventually help build a connection. One afternoon, Mrs. Jones discovered her garden hose tangled in knots. She suspected the Harris boys, but chose to give them the benefit of the doubt. Patiently, she untied the hose and continued with her day. Despite her annoyance, she decided against confronting them, hoping they would recognize their mistake and stop their mischief on their own. The neighborhood was abuzz with gossip about the new family, with a few residents noting the boys' mischievous behavior. Despite most being polite, Mrs. Jones, however, remained silent on the matter, holding on to hope for positive change. She believed that continuing her own activities and nurturing her relationships with kindness and patience would eventually have a positive impact on the boys' behavior. The pranks escalated. One morning, Mrs. Jones found her mailbox stuffed with shaving cream. She knew it was the boys, because as she reached inside, she noticed them peeking at her from behind their curtains. Annoyed but resolute, she cleaned up the mess and decided to confront them if she ever caught them red-handed. One evening, Mrs. Jones caught Jake and Tommy sneaking through her garden and decided it was time to confront them. "Boys, what do you think you're doing messing with my garden?" These pranks were funny at first, but now I've had enough. The boys, however, laughed it off without showing any remorse. She was determined not to let them get away with their mischief. After the confrontation, Mrs. Jones returned to her porch, taking a deep breath to regain her composure. For over 50 years, this tree-lined street, with its well-kept houses and friendly neighbors, had been her cherished home. As an elementary school teacher, Mrs. Jones was known for her kind heart and gentle demeanor. Starting her career right after college, driven by her love for children and her desire to make a positive impact on their lives during her initial years of teaching, Mrs. Jones encountered numerous challenges. Maplewood Elementary, located in a modest neighborhood, had many students from challenging backgrounds. Despite these obstacles, she was determined to create a safe and nurturing environment for her students. Mrs. Jones had a remarkable talent for connecting with children. Mrs. Jones earned a reputation for her innovative teaching methods. Over the years, she integrated art, music, and nature into her curriculum, convinced that a holistic approach was crucial for children's development. Under her care, students flourished, and many returned later to express their gratitude for the profound impact she had on their lives. The children of Maplewood Lane adored her. They would often gather in her yard, listening to her stories and learning from her wealth of knowledge. Mrs. Jones organized seasonal activities like pumpkin carving in the fall, holiday cookie decorating in the winter, and flower planting in the spring. Her home was a sanctuary of warmth and love, where every child felt welcome and cherished. Mrs. Jones believed in the power of community. She organized neighborhood events such as picnics, block parties, and charity drives, bringing residents together and fostering a sense of unity. Her efforts created a close-knit community where everyone looked out for one another. Her years as a teacher had taught her the importance of patience, understanding, and kindness. These values shaped her interactions with the Harris boys. Despite their mischief, she saw the potential for growth and change in them. She was determined to guide them with the same love and care she had shown her students and the neighborhood children. The day after the confrontation, Mrs. Jones decided to reach out to Jake and Tommy in a different way. She baked a batch of her famous chocolate chip cookies and carefully packed them into a basket with a hopeful heart. She walked over to the Harris house and knocked on the door. Carla Harris answered, surprised to see Mrs. Jones standing there with the basket of cookies. "Hello, Mrs. Jones. What a lovely surprise." "Good afternoon, Carla," Mrs. Jones replied warmly. "I brought some cookies for Jake and Tommy. I was hoping to have a chat with them." Carla invited her in, and Mrs. Jones found the boys in the living room watching television. "Hello, boys," Mrs. Jones greeted them cheerfully. "I brought you some cookies. I thought we could have a little talk. I know we've had a bit of a rough start," she began in gentle tone, "but I want you to know that I'm here for you. I was a teacher, and I've seen a lot of kids go through tough times. I believe you both have a lot of potential, and I'd love to help you discover it." Despite Mrs. Jones's sincere efforts to reach out to Jake and Tommy, the boys remained stubborn and defiant. They denied any wrongdoing when confronted and continued their pranks. Mrs. Jones was disheartened but not discouraged. She believed in the power of kindness and patience and resolved to persist. Mrs. Jones decided it was time to involve the boys' parents. She invited Carla and Keith Harris over for tea. As they sipped their tea on her porch, Mrs. Jones explained the ongoing pranks and their impact. Carla and Keith were apologetic. "We're so sorry, Mrs. Jones," Carla said, looking embarrassed. "We've talked to the boys, but they keep denying everything." "I understand," Mrs. Jones replied gently. "It's a tough age, and they're adjusting to a new place. I believe they need more structure, perhaps some positive outlets for their energy." Keith nodded. "We'll talk to them again and try to get them more involved in constructive activities." "We appreciate your patience, Mrs. Jones." It didn't take long for the camera to capture Jake and Tommy in the act of vandalizing her garden shed. Armed with the footage, Mrs. Jones approached Carla and Keith once again. "I'm truly sorry to have to show you this," she said, handing them the video. "But I believe it's important that you see the extent of the problem." Carla watched the video, her face turning pale. "I can't believe it," she murmured. "We need to do something." Keith sighed heavily. "We'll handle it, Mrs. Jones. Thank you for bringing this to our attention." Carla and Keith decided that Jake and Tommy needed to face the consequences. They grounded the boys and assigned them to help Mrs. Jones with her garden repairs. Mrs. Jones agreed to the arrangement. She met them in her garden one Saturday morning, ready to guide them in repairing the damage. Despite their parents' attempts to discipline them and Mrs. Jones's continued kindness, Jake and Tommy's pranks intensified. One morning, Mrs. Jones found her garden gnomes shattered and spray paint defacing her fence. She couldn't believe the boys would go to such lengths, but the evidence was unmistakable. Feeling the strain, Mrs. Jones decided it was time to seek help beyond the immediate community. She contacted the local police to report the vandalism and spoke with a community liaison officer who specialized in youth behavior issues. Officer Collins visited the Harris household, warning the boys about the serious consequences of their actions. The school counselor, Mrs. Hernandez, arranged to meet with Jake and Tommy to discuss their behavior and find ways to support them. Despite these efforts, the boys continued their tirade. One night, they went too far. They set off fireworks in Mrs. Jones's backyard, causing a small fire that could have easily spread if not for the quick response of the fire department. The incident shook the entire neighborhood, and Carla and Keith Harris were devastated. The fire was a turning point. The community, including the Harris family, realized that something had to change drastically. A community meeting was held to address the ongoing issues. The neighborhood agreed to support the Harris family and work together to help Jake and Tommy find a better path. The program included community service, counseling, and skill-building workshops. Would Jake and Tommy change their ways? Despite the efforts of the youth program, Jake and Tommy were not interested in changing. One evening, they packed their bags and ran away, leaving a note for their parents. "We can't take this anymore. Don't try to find us." When Carla and Keith discovered the note, they were devastated. The Harris family reached out to the police, and a search was launched immediately. Everyone was on edge, hoping for the boys' safe return. For days, the community scoured the neighborhood and surrounding areas, looking for any sign of Jake and Tommy. Flyers were posted. Mrs. Jones felt a heavy weight on her heart. She had hoped so much for the boys to change, but now they were in even greater danger. Officer Collins coordinated the search efforts, keeping everyone informed. "We'll find them," he reassured Carla and Keith. The days stretched on with no word from Jake and Tommy. The Harris family was consumed with worry, and Mrs. Jones felt a deep sense of guilt and helplessness. She spent her days pacing her garden, unable to focus on her usual activities, and her nights were sleepless, filled with concern for the boys' safety. The neighborhood rallied around the Harris family, offering support and joining the search efforts. Volunteers organized search parties, combing through the nearby woods, abandoned buildings, and even a distant field. The once peaceful Maplewood Lane was now marked by the anxious faces of its residents and the frequent sound of police sirens. Carla Harris, desperate and exhausted, made a tearful plea on the local news, begging her sons to come home. "Jake, Tommy, if you can hear me, please come home. We love you, and we just want you to be safe. We can work through anything, but we need you here with us." The broadcast touched many hearts, and tips began to pour in from people who thought they had seen the boys. However, none of the leads panned out, and the days continued to drag on without any concrete news. A week after the boys had disappeared, a call came in from a small town. A shopkeeper had recognized the boys from the flyers and called the police. The boys were found huddled in a convenience store, tired and hungry, but unharmed. When Officer Collins brought Jake and Tommy back home, Carla and Keith were overwhelmed with relief. They hugged their sons tightly. The boys, though sullen and withdrawn, seemed relieved to be back home as well. The return of Jake and Tommy brought a mix of emotions. The neighborhood was relieved, but also angry and frustrated by the disruption and fear the boys had caused. The Harris family, determined to address the deeper issues, sought the help of a family therapist and redoubled their efforts to provide a stable and supportive environment for their sons. Jake and Tommy had to face the consequences of their actions. They were placed on probation and required to attend counseling sessions with Mrs. Hernandez, the school counselor, and participate in community service. The boys were also grounded and had to adhere to a strict schedule, which included helping Mrs. Jones with her garden and other neighborhood projects. The first few days were tough. The boys were resentful and uncooperative, but the community's firm yet compassionate approach began to make an impact. Mrs. Jones, ever patient, continued to offer her guidance, sharing stories from her teaching days and encouraging the boys to find positive outlets for their energy. As the weeks went by, Jake and Tommy genuinely tried to turn over a new leaf. They attended their counseling sessions, helped around the neighborhood, and even started showing more respect to Mrs. Jones. However, old habits die hard. One afternoon, feeling particularly frustrated, they gave in to their impulses and vandalized a neighbor's car, scratching the paint and slashing the tires. The community was outraged. Carla and Keith were devastated, fearing that all their efforts had been in vain. The boys, feeling the weight of their actions, were scared and regretful, but tried to deny their involvement. Mrs. Jones, upon hearing about the incident, decided it was time to take a more direct approach. She invited Jake and Tommy over for tea, knowing that a heart-to-heart conversation was necessary. When the boys arrived, looking sullen and guilty, Mrs. Jones greeted them warmly. "I think we need to talk," she said gently, leading them to her cozy kitchen. As they sat down, she looked them in the eyes and asked, "Why did you do it?" Jake and Tommy squirmed in their seats, but under Mrs. Jones's steady gaze, they eventually admitted to the vandalism. Mrs. Jones nodded thoughtfully. "I'm glad you told the truth. Now let's talk about responsibility. When you make a mistake, you need to own up to it and make amends. Hiding or lying only makes things worse." The boys listened, their guilt evident. Mrs. Jones continued, "We're going to fix this. You will apologize to the neighbor, and you will help repair the damage you caused. It's time to show the community that you're committed to change." The next day, Mrs. Jones accompanied Jake and Tommy to the neighbor's house. The boys nervously knocked on the door. They took a deep breath and apologized. "We're really sorry for what we did. It was wrong, and we'll do whatever it takes to make it right." The neighbor, though still angry, was impressed by their sincerity and agreed to let them help repair the car. As they worked to fix their mistake, Jake and Tommy began to earn back the trust of the neighborhood. Mrs. Jones was there every step of the way, offering guidance and support. Slowly but surely, the boys started to understand the importance of their actions and the impact they had on others. They began to take pride in their work and in the positive changes they were making. One afternoon, after a long day of working on the neighbor's car, Jake turned to Mrs. Jones. "Thank you for believing in us, even when we mess up," he said quietly. Tommy nodded in agreement, his eyes filled with gratitude. Mrs. Jones smiled warmly. "Everyone makes mistakes, boys. What matters is how you choose to fix them and what you learn from them. I see great potential in both of you, and I'm proud of the progress you're making." With the car repaired and their apologies accepted, the boys began to take on more responsibilities around the neighborhood. They helped organize a community cleanup day, painted fences, and even volunteered at the local animal shelter. The residents of Maplewood Lane started to see Jake and Tommy in a new light, recognizing their efforts and encouraging their growth. The boys' relationship with their parents also improved. Carla and Keith, relieved to see their sons making better choices, supported them with love and understanding. Family therapy sessions helped them communicate more effectively and strengthen their bonds. Jake rediscovered his passion for drawing, and Mrs. Jones connected him with a local artist who offered to mentor him. Tommy, on the other hand, channeled his energy into sports, joining the school's soccer team and finding camaraderie among his teammates. These new interests provided the boys with positive outlets for their emotions, and helped them develop a sense of purpose and direction. They began to see themselves not as troublemakers, but as valuable members of their community. Despite their progress, Mrs. Jones knew that Jake and Tommy still had much to learn. She decided to give them a challenge that would test their commitment and teach them a valuable lesson about perseverance and teamwork. She asked the boys to help her organize a neighborhood garden party, a tradition that had fallen by the wayside in recent years. The party would involve coordinating with neighbors, planning activities, and ensuring everything ran smoothly. Initially, Jake and Tommy were overwhelmed by the task, but Mrs. Jones guided them through the process. She taught them how to delegate tasks, communicate effectively. The boys worked tirelessly, reaching out to neighbors for contributions and ideas. As the date of the garden party approached, the boys' hard work paid off. The neighborhood buzzed with excitement, and everyone pitched in to help. The boys felt a sense of accomplishment and pride in their efforts. The garden party was a resounding success. The community gathered in Mrs. Jones's beautifully tended garden, enjoying food, games, and each other's company. Jake and Tommy were praised for their hard work and organizational skills, and they basked in the positive attention. Mrs. Jones watched with satisfaction as the boys interacted confidently with their neighbors. Seeing firsthand the fruits of their labor, she knew this experience had taught them valuable lessons about responsibility, leadership, and the rewards of perseverance. With the support of Mrs. Jones, their parents, and the community, Jake and Tommy continued to thrive. They excelled in their new interests and became role models for other kids in the neighborhood. The boys had learned to channel their energy into positive endeavors and had earned the respect of those around them. Maplewood Lane, once troubled by the mischief, had become a symbol of transformation and hope. The boys' journey, from troublemakers to trusted members of the community, was a testament to the power of patience, kindness, and unwavering support. Mrs. Jones, now a beloved figure in the neighborhood, continued to nurture and guide the children of Maplewood Lane. Her garden became a place of learning and growth, where kids gathered to listen to her stories and seek her advice. Her impact on Jake and Tommy was profound, and they often spoke about how she had changed their lives. They visited her regularly, sharing their successes and challenges, and always leaving with a renewed sense of purpose. As Jake and Tommy grew older, they carried the lessons they had learned from Mrs. Jones into their adult lives. Jake pursued a career in art, using his talent to inspire others, while Tommy became a coach, helping kids find their passion in sports. Their bond with Mrs. Jones remained strong, and they often credited her with their success. They knew that without her guidance and belief in them, their lives could have taken a very different path. Years later, at a community celebration in honor of Mrs. Jones's contributions to Maplewood Lane, Jake and Tommy stood up to speak. They recounted their journey, expressing their gratitude for the woman who had never given up on them. Mrs. Jones taught us that everyone deserves a second chance, Tommy said. She showed us the power of kindness and patience, and she believed in us when no one else did. Jake added, her lessons have shaped who we are today. We owe her everything, and we're committed to carrying forward the values she instilled in us. The audience applauded, and Mrs. Jones, with tears in her eyes, hugged the boys who had become like grandsons to her. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that her life's work had made a lasting difference. Maplewood Lane had come full circle, a testament to the enduring power of love, community, and second chances. Binding bonds through beautiful tales. Thank you for watching.